Hello Earthlings, how's it going? My name is Alex and I've been living and working in China for the past 18 years. The reasons of making this video are to give an overview of what it is to be a teacher in China, to categorize institutions where you can teach as an international teacher, to give advice about making the best out of your teaching career, and finally, to show international teachers' social life in this wonderful and vibrant country. Why did you choose to become a teacher?
Well, it all started about 8 years ago when I came to China as an exchange student. I intended to go back after my studies and start a career in Germany. That was the plan. But then after my semester finished, I decided to stay here and work as a teacher. And the plan was not really something that I had thought about thoroughly. It just came up. There was an opportunity that came up, and I saw that a lot of people, a lot of foreigners especially, are doing this job even though it wasn't their original goal. And for most of these people, it's an opportunity that arises, and you start doing it for a while, and you might do it for 1 year, 2 years, or a longer period of time. For me, it's been 7 years teaching now, something that I didn't intend to do, but the opportunity came up and I'm happy.
I never intended to become a teacher. It happened to me. After I graduated university, there were too many graduates and not enough jobs. And my friend at the time went to Korea to teach English, which I thought was crazy. I didn't understand why. But I talked to him and he said it's really good, and so I thought I'd give it a try. And I've been in Asia for the last 20 years. I was in Korea, and then Japan, and then China. And at first it was just a means to live somewhere cool and travel and earn money. And then at some point I settled into the fact that I'm a teacher, and I started caring about what I was doing. Yeah.
My major was English language and linguistics. And honestly, that doesn't really leave you open for many different careers. But I also didn't know what I wanted to do when I left university. And while I was there in my second year, a group came round called TEIC, which was Teach English in China. And because me and my best friend, we didn't know what we wanted to do, so we said, all right, when we graduate, we'll go to China, we'll teach, and we'll see how it is. Mm-hmm. And I just ended up loving it. I really, really enjoyed teaching here. So that's what I ended up doing, and I've been doing it ever since, really.
I became a teacher by accident of sorts. I was trying to decide what I wanted to do with myself, and I heard about opportunities to teach English abroad. And when I was in university, I'd done some work at summer camps being a counselor, and I thought I could do that. That seems okay. So I decided to give it a shot. I went over and I did some teaching, and really in very short order I just realized, wow, this is just so much fun, this is so interesting, and it just grew from there.
I didn't want to be a teacher. My mum was a teacher and I saw how stressful it was for her, and I did everything to avoid it. But when I was at university, in my third year, I supported a lot of the first years and realised that I really like supporting artists and nurturing this creativity. And as much as I love doing it myself, there's something really special you get from helping somebody see their potential and realise their potential, and helping them kind of, especially with creative subjects. Mm-hmm. That was just delightful. And then I became a TA, so I was a teaching assistant, and I watched some really, really horrible teaching, and that is, I think, where I learned how not to teach. And I was like, oh, it was the best training I ever could have. And realised I just had a love for it from there. That I was like, I want to communicate passionately, do something that children, even ones that aren't academically, gifted, can still access as well. And I love drama, so it was quite natural.
What do you teach?
I teach English to Chinese kids who are 7, 8 years old, so grade 1 and 2. I teach them spoken English. I give the kids an introduction, a fun introduction to English, and then when they get to grade 3, it becomes a more serious subject. Yeah, something like that.
I teach advanced oral English. I teach English for postgraduate students. And I also teach practical English writing, which is sort of the equivalent of business English, but with a focus on actually writing.
I teach kindergarten.
Homeroom.
Homeroom kindergarten teacher.
Where do you teach?
So I teach at a school that used to be a training school. It has changed its structure to comply with the current laws. And yes, it is a school for kids aged 3 to I think around 13, 14, yes.
Right now I'm teaching in a public primary school. I've been there for like 6 years, so I'm well settled in at this job.
So I teach at Nanjing Institute of Technology, which is in the very south of Nanjing in Jiangsu province. The part of Nanjing is Jianning, which is quite far from the city centre, but it has a much more relaxed vibe to it.
Where do you teach?
I teach at a top tier international school
Right.
here in Nanjing.
You mentioned earlier American curriculum,
Yes,
right?
yes, it's an American curriculum, yeah.
I teach at an international school here in the neighborhood.
How did you find that place of work?
Oh, that is really random. So it happened about 7 years ago. At that time, I was looking for a new apartment in the city, and I was talking to a Chinese agent who was showing me the apartments. On that very day, she was showing me around. She was on her e-bike and she told me, hey, my husband, who is a foreigner, by the way, is working at a school, at a training school, and they're currently looking for teachers. Would you be interested? I'm like, all right, yeah, potentially. And she was like, hop on. I just hopped on her e-bike, the back of her e-bike, right there, right then. She took me just randomly to the training school, and suddenly I was in an interview. And that happened to turn out to be my job, and now I've been teaching there for 7 years, thanks to that lady.
Too easy to be true. So that job literally fell in your hands,
It fell
right?
in my hands, literally, yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
yes.
When I first went to this school, I was working in an academy. So I was working in the afternoon and the evening. So my mornings were free. So I decided to try and find a morning job. And I found this primary school that wanted me to just go in the mornings. So it started off as a part-time job. And then the school really liked me, so they gave me more hours and more classes, and they paid me more. And in the end, they said, just come and work full-time. And I did, and I've been there since.
Why did you choose to teach in a university? Why not a public school or a private training center?
Well, there are a few reasons for that. Particularly, I'd rather teach older students than younger students. In my time teaching, I've taught the full range, and I feel most comfortable when I'm teaching older students. That's one reason. Also, this university in particular, when I was looking for the job, one of the selling points that the person interviewing me was talking about was that the foreigners who do come here, the foreign teachers, they tend to stay for longer. It doesn't have a revolving door like many training schools or other kinds of schools do. And I was looking for a sense of stability in this job, which is why I chose this university, really.
You mentioned that you like to teach adults. Well, if we talk about, if we compare university students and high school students, for instance, there is not a very big age gap. Why not a high school?
There's not a huge age gap, but I like the freedom that comes with university. Like, a high school will usually follow a very set syllabus, whereas in a university like this one, I do have a syllabus, but I have a lot more freedom with what I do in my classes and the way I plan my lessons.
Well, I was actually headhunted, which was very nice. I taught the headmaster, the founding head.
Sorry, before you continue, were you headhunted when you were in the UK?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yeah. I taught the headmaster's daughter. He was the founding head of the school, and when he left, we kind of had a joke, and I was like, "Oh, if you need a drama teacher," and he was like, "Oh, I will," and I was like, and then he did. He got in contact, and initially I was like, "It's China, no," and like, "No, of course I'm not, no," and then I heard the offer. And I was like, oh. And it was my sister and my dad that were actually really pushy, and they were the ones saying, you know, you've got to take this opportunity. And we did. And 5 years later, I'm still here.
I was actually teaching at another international school, and I was familiar with some people at this particular international school through the international school network of professional development, and I really liked them. I really liked the philosophy they espoused, and when they told me that there was a position available, they asked me if it was something I would be interested in interviewing for. I jumped at the chance, and actually my wife and I, we interviewed together. They brought us in to have an interview, a co-interview, as it were.
All right, that's
which
great.
was great, because we were both at that other international school,
Yeah.
and we moved over to this international school.
Can you talk about your students a little bit?
Yeah, my kids are grade 1 and 2 in primary school, so they've just come from kindergarten. They're starting their school life. They're young, cute, full of energy. It's really a good age to teach because they can learn a lot of things that I teach them. They learn very quickly, and they still have the energy to. I can sing songs with them. With the older kids, maybe wouldn't be so interested to sing songs, but the younger kids, I can get them to sing songs, and we can get them excited in the classroom. Yeah, they're good kids. I have big class sizes, like 40 kids in a class. It used to be 50, now it's more like 40. But my kids are awesome, yeah. They make the job fun.
You've said that you've taught in Asia before, right? So if you compare Chinese students to Korean students, how would you?
I mean, Korea, Japan, and China, the kids are pretty similar. They have a hard work ethic, but they're fun.
How about behavior?
Behavior, I didn't see any difference really. There's always naughty kids, but I always have a teacher in there helping me with the discipline. So
it's not just you in the classroom.
Yeah,
it's your TA, right?
Discipline's not my strong point.
Right.
So I make sure the school on my contract that I always have a Chinese teacher in the class.
Okay,
So I don't need to worry about that. I can just focus on the teaching,
that makes sense.
and there will be a teacher there to help me if the kids get crazy.
The students in the UK have got, there's a passion and a freedom of thought that they have that it is very noticeable in our Chinese students that they struggle with. And it's not like they don't have passion, and it's not like they don't have free thinking. It's that I find them very caged, and it takes a lot of training to get them to open up and get them to realize that actually in drama there's not a right and wrong answer. There are so many different ways to access something glorious and create something beautiful and magnificent. It's difficult, the school that I'm in, because it's an American curriculum. There aren't official exams in drama. In the UK there is. So with my UK students, they also know they're working towards something. They're working towards their education. They're going to get a grade. They're actually going to get an exam, a qualification, whether they do it at GCSE or A-level. Whereas my students here right now, there isn't. So they do it for the love of it, which is kind of beautiful, but at the same time it's very frustrating because I tend to lose them for AP exams for a month out of the year, and some of them, their focus is clearly on their math, science, English, things like this, whereas the focus on drama isn't quite as strong.
How would you compare the level of creativity of students here and students back home?
Creativity is also incredibly individual. So you've got what I'm about to say is obviously very generalised, but I find UK students have got fire, and I just kind of have to nurture that fire in the right direction. Whereas students here, I feel like I have to stoke the fire first and then get it in the right direction. It's not the case for all of them. I've got some people who are incredibly enthusiastic, but they are one or two students.
Percentage-wise, yeah, I was just about to say 1 or 2 students in what class? How many students?
Over say 3 classes, I would say 2% of students are really fiery, whereas in the UK I would say that it was closer to 80-90% of kids, and they are passionate, but I think they can't see a future in it. I think in the UK children see this as their career. They know that the arts industry is one of the highest employers in the entire country, whereas here I don't think they feel they're going to go further with it, and that really affects how they show up to their everyday lesson.
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. What subjects do you think parents, because parents are controlling their kids?
Maths, English, science, 100%.
English, science,
yeah,
yes.
Histories, things like this.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Was that glass?
The students here in China from a very young age are exposed to a lot of pressure. They have to be good in so many fields. They have to be able to, play instruments, take art classes, dancing classes, or whatever it takes. Be good at math, be good at science, speak multiple languages. There is a lot of pressure on kids in China, and there's a lot more competition, especially in some bigger cities. There's fierce competition because only the best of the best get to, pass the examination and go to a good school. And parents are the ones pushing their kids as well. So that affects us as teachers because we have to deliver more than other schools. We have to do better. We have to be, we have to teach faster. Our curriculum has to be very precise, and we have to show results.
When it comes to kindergartners or young students, I think to a large extent, students are students. Mm-hmm. I think you have to look at their individual sets of challenges. Mm-hmm. Whether it's you have to explore what is their socioeconomic background, what is their what challenges are they going through, whether it's they're moving to a new place.
Okay, let me rephrase maybe. Would you say that teaching kindergarten in the States would be the same as teaching kindergarten here, or is it different?
If I was teaching kindergarten in a public school in the States, it would be a drastically different experience, mm-hmm. a dramatically different experience. Okay. And that won't be because of the kids. And I think that's something that anybody who's in a teaching career should be aware of, that oftentimes the major factor in what your classroom experience is going to be like is the design of the school, mm-hmm. more than the students. That's not to say that where the students are from doesn't have an effect. Of course it has an effect because students are part of a family.
So you just compared public school in the States and IB school here.
Yeah, very different.
What about IB school in the States and IB school in China?
I've never taught in an IB school in the States, so it would be hard for me to say, but I think that it would probably be the IB school in the States would probably bear more resemblance to the IB school here than it would to a public school.
For me, teaching at university level, I find the students are very disciplined. Like, I never ever have problems with discipline in my classes. If I ask the students to do something, they will do it. They never really give me any problems. When I begin teaching them, I sort of lay out the rules in my classroom, which honestly, I don't have many rules in my classroom. It's mostly just don't have earphones in when I'm teaching. If you're going to use your phone, use it for something in the class, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I never have any problems with them. I think they're studious. They are still students. Like, every one of us has experienced being a little bit lazier than we should be, studying a little bit less than we should. But by and large, I find they work hard and they do what I ask them to do.
As far as I remember, classes in universities are really big. How many students do you have in your
Yeah,
class?
that's right. So, on average, my classes are between 40 and 50 students, and each class is 1 hour and 40 minutes. So it's quite a lot of teaching time, and keeping them engaged can be a problem on occasion.
What advice would you give to teachers who plan to teach in universities in China?
My best advice, if you're going to teach in a university or a college, would be to not expect them to be students in the same way that we are students in universities and colleges in the West.
Can you elaborate?
They treat their university students a lot more like they treat their high school students here. They have registered classes, they have compulsory physical education that they have to do. University life here is much more similar to our high school than our universities in the West.
Okay. Would you say that you can expect as much research, real research, like students do in the West, here?
No.
If you know what I mean?
No.
No. Okay.
No, the syllabus is much more prescribed. They're not expected to do as much self-teaching as we would do back home in preparation for exams or dissertations or things like that. At least not in the classes that I teach, so not in the English language-based classes.
Would you call it spoon feeding?
To an extent, yes, they are spoon-fed the information, but there is still sort of an element of independence on their part. They still do have to do some study, they still do have to do some additional work. And as their teacher, I want them to do that, so I will give them activities that require a little bit more thought, a little bit less spoon feeding than they are probably used to.
So that depends on the teacher, of course,
That
right?
depends
Okay.
a lot more on the teacher, yes.
Is there an opportunity for promotion in schools like yours?
The easy answer, the obvious answer is no, there isn't. In my case, there isn't, because my school has a fixed structure. So when they hire teachers, we are supposed to teach, and that is basically the whole thing. That's our main work task. And they have positions for management, but oftentimes that position wasn't filled and they weren't looking for management positions. If they have a manager, that has to be a Chinese person. They're not looking for foreigners. So as for teachers, there is no supervisory or higher role. You do the job, and when your class ends, you're done.
Are there any opportunities for professional development? Like, for example, your school brings you to a place where you take part in a seminar or some kind of courses. Do they pay for it?
Yeah, I have heard, unfortunately, that in many schools here in China, of course, I'm not speaking about all, but in many schools, that is something that is lacking. I know from friends who have been working in different kinds of schools. As for my school, to be honest, there isn't. You gain experience as you're teaching, but that is true for any job. You gain experience, you learn to do your job better over time. But that doesn't mean the school is providing a particular, they're providing you with training or to do your job in a more effective way. Seminars, no. Not in my school, at least, and I have heard from friends who are working in different schools that is something that they're lacking in many places. But I'm not speaking for all.
Generally not. Generally, you want to work in an international school or a much bigger school to get for some kind of career opportunities like this.
Would you expect a promotion working in a university in China?
No. There isn't much room for upward mobility when it comes to working in a university. You're never going to get head of department jobs, things like that. It doesn't really work like that as a foreign teacher. The longer you stay, there are perks. You get larger bonuses, and there are sort of lateral opportunities. So the longer you're here, they might ask you to be involved in, maybe when they cooperate with overseas universities, they might ask you to help with that. And so you will get additional roles being here for longer. Mm-hmm. But as far as actual promotions go, no, there isn't really much opportunity for that.
Oh yeah, yes there are, but I have to say that, can I be very frank?
Oh yeah.
Without a penis, you're not likely to get terribly far. It's still very misogynist in this kind of, I'm not sure if it's all international schools or just the one I'm very specifically in. Males do tend to get promoted over females, which is very sad and not necessarily the right person in the right role. But then I say that having not been promoted to what I wanted to get, and so, you know, I could just be bitter.
Right, right.
I mean, I did get a promotion, and I do head up the fine arts department, but there have been other opportunities that have come up that I have been overlooked for.
Mm-hmm. Who decides who should be promoted or not? Is it the foreign staff, the foreign management, or
well,
local?
realistically, if you're going to get promoted, you generally get a tap on the shoulder, and asked to sort of interview for this position. And but usually it is the academic staff, so it's the head of the school, usually.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Head of the school. That's
the
foreign staff.
Foreign staff.
Foreign
so
staff.
us.
Okay.
The Chinese local staff don't tend to get involved with the academic side, so the firing and hiring.
You said you work in an international school. What sort of curriculum is there?
So we use a PYP curriculum framework.
Would you say that you can go from teaching to managing? For example, if you are a homeroom teacher with years of experience behind your back, right? Would you say that you could be a PYP coordinator?
Oh, sure.
Or maybe
Sure.
if you're a PYP coordinator, you could be a visiting team member.
Sure.
Maybe if you're a PYP coordinator for many years, maybe you could be a school principal.
You
something
certainly
like
could.
Is there a letter?
Sure.
There?
And there is training opportunities for moving between these various roles within.
Would you consider something like that?
Personally, I actually tried being a curriculum coordinator once.
How did you like it?
At the time, I did not. For me, it was not something that I just enjoy being in the classroom.
Okay. Okay.
I missed being, I just like being there.
What's your academic background?
So I have a bachelor degree. I did my bachelor degree in commerce in New Zealand, and then once I graduated, I left for Asia. I did at one point start a master's degree in linguistics. I'm very interested in languages. I started a master's degree in linguistics, but I only got partway through it and stopped.
So your Finnish degree, economics, obviously it's not really helping in your career.
No, I mean, well, the only way it helped is that to be a teacher in Korea or Japan or China, I needed to have that degree. So it did help me in that respect.
Any degree?
Any degree.
Do you plan to study further?
Probably not. I've taught in a few international schools just as a step-in teacher. What do you call that? Like when someone is
Substitute teacher?
I used to be a substitute teacher in the Nanjing International School, and for some reason that kind of teaching doesn't like. I like teaching the ESL as a second language. That's more my thing. I don't. Yeah. I don't. A lot of people do go into from what I'm doing to go to get the teaching qualification and then teach in international schools. I don't know. I don't think that's right for me.
Teaching in international schools can be quite rewarding in terms of the salary.
Yeah, but see, my friends that have gone from teaching in a public school to teaching in a private school, they've all complained, or they've told me about the workload that has increased a lot. So it seemed like international school teachers work a lot more. Like my current job, a lot of days I finish at 12 o'clock. So it's going to be really difficult to give that up, to give up the freedom of the time.
Right.
I only have a bachelor's degree. I've not done any further postgraduate education. I studied at Lancaster University, studying English language and linguistics. I also, in order to teach in China, you also need a TESOL, so teaching English as a second language, a qualification to do that. Mine is 300 hours, including tutoring, and business English.
You plan to continue teaching in your life, right? Would you consider getting master's degree or study more or PGC or something like that?
Yeah, I've thought about maybe not a master's degree, but a PGCE I have thought about, because
How would that help you working in a university?
in a university, probably not very much.
Would you get a raise?
No. Well, I don't know. I said no very quickly, but I don't actually know. But I don't think so, because a PGCE is generally tailored towards well, all levels of public school, so middle, primary and high school. But I don't think it particularly applies to university.
So I studied international business administration, and as you can see, it is unrelated to teaching. It is finance industry. That's what I intended to go into, banking, finance. That is what fascinated me before. And then I came to China, became a teacher. I didn't become a teacher because I had a certain background in that particular field, or because I thought teaching was particularly fascinating or whatever. It was an opportunity that came up and I took it. And I decided I would stick around for a while, do it for a short period of time. And it became a very long period of time. It became 7 years. But my original field was very different, and I don't think that it added any value to what I'm doing currently. But that's what happens sometimes. You study one thing and then you do something completely different. And I think I'm not the only one to have this kind of story.
I've got an MA in teaching English to speakers of other languages. I've got a PGCE in, I guess, straightforward primary education. And then just all of the professional development I've done along the way.
Okay. Does it help you in your career? For example, PGC?
I think a PGC helps. I think an MA helps more. So I guess the best way of thinking about a PGCE is it's kind of like a PGC is 1 year of postgraduate work. An MA, a master's, is 2 years of postgraduate work. So more is always gonna help you more, I suppose. I'd say if you're going to be a homeroom teacher, it probably doesn't necessarily pay to go beyond MA. I mean, there's no point having a PhD if you're going to be a homeroom teacher. But if you're going to be a homeroom teacher or a subject area teacher, certainly an MA is going to expand your opportunities exponentially.
I come from a British background. I had my GCSEs, my A-levels, then I went into teaching. So my teaching qualification was a PGCE after my degree. And I just got my master's in education and leadership.
Because you're planning to go to administration later?
Maybe. Okay. I think my master's has changed my mind a lot about my future. But
But would you say that educating yourself and investing your time and money in education worth it?
100%. You can never take away knowledge, and getting a master's degree, keeping going, educating yourself, I think is the most valuable value you can ever give yourself. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I hope I always strive for learning for the rest of my life.
For example, say you just have your bachelor's in teaching drama. You don't have PGC, you don't have your master's. Would your salary be the same?
No, absolutely not. No, the fact that I had my British PGCE, that was quite a big deal. Even though in China at the time when I came to teach, it wasn't required, and I believe that changed about 2 years ago. So you do need to have a formal teaching qualification now.
Wait a second, you said that it wasn't required in China. Do you mean it wasn't required in China for your visa or for the bosses in school?
For the visa and for the, for bosses in school. So the school that I was in, the legal requirement was teaching experience, but not an official qualification. But that's changed now.
Would you be able to get a job in your school without a PGC or teaching license?
Not now.
So if no teaching license, no teaching certificate like in Canada, or no PGC, you cannot get a job?
No, you wouldn't get looked at. Unless you were a doctor, if you had a doctorate and you'd been teaching for a certain amount of years, they would, if you possibly said if you were going to take it. I don't really know the ins and outs, but I know that through, because I've been doing lots of interviews, if a teacher doesn't have a teaching qualification, they are not looked at.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? It's PGC is a course about pedagogy,
Yeah,
right? If you don't know
teaching.
how to teach, how can you teach, right?
Yeah, and you know, the school I'm in is it's a top tier international school, and you know, you can be teaching for a long time, doesn't mean you're teaching well. And again,
Exactly.
the PGC teaches you how to have a reflective practice, and it's really valuable. And it's a teaching qualification. You know, you don't go into other jobs without a certain qualification.
Exactly. Many foreign teachers leave the country, they leave China because they don't like the way they are treated at work. They don't like to cooperate with local staff, and they feel confused in many cases. That's why they leave. How do you find it working with?
There are examples of that. Like, for example, things tend to be quite last minute. So if one of my classes were to be cancelled because of exams or whatever the reason is, I wouldn't find out until the very, very last minute. Which, I mean, it's more of a pet peeve than an actual problem. It can be a little bit annoying, but it's not really an issue, I find. The staff here are also very, very good. Their English is excellent, and they know what they're doing when they're dealing with us because, as I mentioned before, most of the teachers here stay for a long time. Like, I'm the newest teacher, and this is my 3rd year. Everyone else has been here at least 6 years. So they're very old hands in dealing with the foreigners that are here.
Are there some things that you don't understand where they are coming from in terms of management?
Yeah, I mean,
Something that you would never expect?
sometimes it's difficult working with Chinese people, especially if you have Chinese bosses. They have a different work culture.
For example, can you give a couple of examples?
For example, they like to have a lot of meetings, like a lot of meetings. The Chinese teachers do a lot of open classes. The point of the open class is to evaluate the teacher's teaching. But the teachers make a special class. They don't teach their normal class. They put a lot of effort in to make this open class. So in that case, how does that evaluate the teacher's teaching if it's not a regular class?
I'm not sure if I have a fair answer compared to what the vast majority of people teaching here might experience. Because remember, I teach in an international school where the staff is often staff who have studied or worked abroad, or who have had a lot more experience with members of the international community. So they're great. I mean, I love working with them. They have great attitudes and a great work ethic most of the time. I mean, there's always individuals who in any job they slip through and maybe they're a little lazy or they're not quite there yet. But the vast majority of the time, they're great, and I really have nothing but respect for them. I don't know if that would be the case in a local school. I really couldn't say. I'm not really. I don't have the requisite experience to say about that.
How about daily life? Mentality, problems, maybe differences?
I mean,
People around you?
Anytime you live abroad, anytime you live in another culture, there are going to be challenges. It doesn't matter where you decide to live.
How do you feel personally? Comfortable?
Personally, I'm comfortable. I enjoy the challenges that life in another culture present because it makes me rethink my own assumptions. It makes me rethink my own culture.
Very philosophical attitude.
Yeah.
I like that.
My personal view is that there's no right or wrong. There's only things that hold a function within this particular setting. And all the things that they do, all of their attitudes, all their ways of being have historical reasons and have allowed them to thrive as a community and as a society. Are there differences from the way I was raised? Oh, 100%. But sometimes when I go back to the place I was raised, having lived abroad, I have some reverse culture shock, where I say, okay, well, I can see how in this other place that I've lived, I can see how that actually made me feel more comfortable or made me feel happier. So I think it's, yeah, I think wherever you live, you're going to find challenges, and you have to learn to let it go. You have to learn to let it go. Just let it be.
I find that people that I work with are incredibly helpful, and I find them just so hardworking, in the sense that there is nothing that wouldn't do to try and make my life easier, which is, I cannot emphasize how incredibly grateful I am to the people that I work with, especially the Chinese staff, that are helping even with me moving on to my next school. They're helping with new visas. Oops. They're being absolutely amazing. And then there's a few of the, I'm going to say this, the male staff. I find some of the male Chinese staff that I work with quite entitled. And when I'm asking for things, if I'm asking quite efficiently, shall we say, they don't like being told what to do by a woman. They struggle with taking directions from me. Not all of them at all.
By a woman from overseas.
Yeah, a woman from overseas telling them what to do, even though she's the expert. Not possible.
There have been a lot of conflicts with, I have had conflicts with my employees, with my manager at some point. I've had conflicts with my, with the company owner, so our superiors. But they settle, it's just temporary. And I think that the longer you work at a certain place, the better you understand their habits and their way of doing this business, running this business, doing, what they do on a day-to-day basis. You start tolerating more, and at the same time, when a problem does occur, you know how to work on it, how to solve the problem, how to handle it.
Those conflicts, you don't have to specify, but those conflicts, were they based on differences in thinking, or were they based on workflow or something else maybe?
Partially, well, I would say both, because a lot of it was, on the first side, was related to the work directly and how things were organized or structured, or our tasks. But then it all still relates to mentality, I think, because, for example, when you're working with a boss who expects to do certain things that might be outside of your contract, and you somehow are not willing to, then that can cause some conflict. But you might not encounter these problems, at least at that extent, in some other countries, perhaps, where people might be more bound to the contract and might be more, let's say, unwilling to ask for something outside of that contract. But in China, these things occur more often. I have found, not just my own experience, but also friends who have worked in China in multiple industries, that you can be asked to do things that are outside of the contract. And that mentality might be because a superior might think that, if you're really a good employee and you are willing to, and you really respect your superior, you should be willing to do the extra tasks, you should be able to walk the extra mile. And that's sometimes, to a lot of foreigners, might be something they cannot cope with.
What would you say to a person who is planning to come to China from overseas? Like, what advice would you give in terms of mentality? What should they expect?
Okay, first of all, it's very different. Be willing to open up your heart and embrace what you have. It is very different from the West. And I did know that before coming to China. The first time you step out of the airport, you walk inside, you walk on a regular lively street with lots of street vendors. You find yourself in a place that is so different from home, and the smells and the food and everything and the people. There is more uniformity. You have to understand that in China, there are not as many foreigners as you would have in maybe some other countries. So these are some things that might shock you at first. Of course, the habits are different. The culture is very different. But I think when you come here, you have to come with an open mind, willing to embrace all of that and just give yourself time to adjust. It takes time. The language is very different. It doesn't relate to most of the Western languages, and it's quite difficult for many Western foreigners. Foreigners, I'm saying Western because Asian foreigners might have more similarities in the language and the characters. But as for most of the world, it takes some time to get used to. And if you're willing to make this change, I think you should be able to integrate.
Can you tell me 3 things you love about this country?
3 things I love about China. I could probably give you a lot more than that. We'll start with the simplest one. I love the atmosphere here. I find the attitude towards everything is a little bit more relaxed than in my country. There's a lot more freedom just to sort of live your own life and not get caught up in the 9-to-5 attitude that you find in a lot of Western countries. So that's one thing that I love. Another thing that I love is the foreigners. Because when you're living in a country like China, you gravitate towards other foreigners and you make really great friends with people that usually you wouldn't even interact with if you were in your own country. And you sort of build a really good close-knit group of friends from all different walks of life, all different ages. And I really do enjoy that part of life here.
It's interesting, you mentioned, can we pause here? You mentioned 2 things, right? People you wouldn't interact with. Can you give an example?
It's a normal thing for everyone to sort of associate with people their own age, like.
Right, age. Okay, I was thinking the same actually.
Yeah. Like, and here you often age is not a barrier in the friendships that you make. Like, some of my closest friends are in their 40s. Some of my closest friends are still in their 20s. I'm in my 30s.
Yeah, the same.
And it's just it's a good experience because when you only talk to people your own age, they sort of share the same experiences as you and attitudes. But when you speak to people who are younger and people who are older, you get a really good mixture of different attitudes towards things. And I really enjoy that. The weather, the food, the environment here. Like, I mean, people do talk about the pollution, but especially in this city, I don't really have any problems with that. The environment here I find absolutely comfortable. So I love the food, it's delicious. Like, the convenience of life, being able to get deliveries and packages in a way that you don't get in the West, like where they bring it to your door and it's just good. The access to everything that you might need, the beautiful weather,
How about summer? Summer is really hot.
The summer is really hot, but I don't know, I come from a really cold place, so I absolutely adore.
You're okay with the heat,
I adore the heat.
Okay. How about 3 things you struggle with?
3 things I struggle with here. The first one, and it's my own fault that I struggle with this, is the language. Like, I would say beginner Chinese. I have enough Chinese that I can get by on the day-to-day, but I'm not conversational, and I really do need to be conversational. So yeah, the language is probably the biggest struggle, but like I say, that's totally my fault. Something else that I struggle with here.
It's fine if you have only one thing that you struggle with.
That's the thing. Like,
you don't have to tell me 3.
I live such a comfortable life here. I don't really know. No, I think 1 is probably.
Let's make it 1. Okay.
Yeah. 3 things I love about China. Let's start with the food, because we're in a shopping mall now and there's a lot of food restaurants here. The food is amazing. There's so many different kinds of restaurants of food from different areas of China. And then even that you can still, the foreign food, there's delicious Korean restaurants, Japanese restaurants, and it's all affordable to me. Whereas in New Zealand, I wouldn't dream of going to the high-end Japanese restaurant. In here, I don't have to
food
worry
is number
about it.
1. Number 2.
So number 1 is food. Number 2 is convenience. How easy it is for me to get a taxi. How easy it is for me to buy something on Taobao. How easy it is to order some food when I'm hungry. The convenience is unparalleled. To pay for something with a quick scan of my phone.
And the 3rd thing?
And the 3rd thing, I guess the people. The Chinese people are very friendly. You know, they're very welcoming. They're very, quick to praise me for speaking Chinese, even though my Chinese is not good, and they're always interested to talk to a foreign person.
How about 3 things you struggle with living in China?
I guess the language probably is number 1, right? Number 2, I mean, the pollution, I guess. I don't know the number 3. Let's stick with 2. 2 is good.
Well, the first thing for me would be Taobao. The fact that you have so many options. By the way, for those who don't know, this is something that is similar to Amazon. It's a huge online shopping platform with suppliers, the number you cannot even think of. I think if you scroll down, sometimes you cannot reach the end. And also very affordable, including delivery either for free or with a very small delivery cost, and it's amazing. It's convenient. It's fast. I don't think I could live without it. Yeah. Second thing for me would be the payment options. WeChat Pay, Alipay. They're QR code systems that you can use everywhere. You don't have to carry around cash. I don't carry around. I mean, I have cash just in case, but I don't need to use it anywhere. Even though I'm not opposing cash, I do like the option, but the thing is, the fact that I can use those QR codes is just amazing.
Okay.
And
the third one?
The third one for me would be the convenience of life, the fact that everything is nearby, like look around, like restaurants, businesses, cafes, massage places, wherever you are, you never have to look for too long. It's just amazing.
Okay. How about 3 things that you struggle with living in China?
I mean, the first thing would probably be e-bikes. I'm kind of terrified by them a little bit, even though I used to ride one myself. But they can be pretty crazy.
Do you mean the traffic that they create?
Yeah, it doesn't, like e-bike riders don't need to have a license to ride an e-bike. So a lot of those people are not experienced. They might be experienced, but they were not educated on following the traffic rules.
Right.
And you have a lot of, for example, delivery people who deliver food, and they're always in a rush because they have a very short time to deliver their food. And they're usually looking at their map while riding, and it's super dangerous. They're rushing and looking down and going right, left, but not just them. I know a lot of people who have gotten into accidents, even though they were paying attention and riding carefully, but I guess it's just really dangerous. E-bikes, yeah, crazy.
Okay. Second thing?
Second thing for me would be, I guess, the fact that living here for so long, it is still very hard to get a permanent residency. In fact, I have known so many foreigners who have been living here for 10 years or more who still cannot get permanent residency, even though they speak the language. Some of them are married to a Chinese person, have a Chinese child. Still, it's really, really hard, and it would be nice to have more security in that sense.
Right.
And
The third thing?
the third thing, I guess, would be the noise level, as we're experiencing right now.
Noise pollution is crazy, I agree.
I like the fact that, I don't mind that it can be crowded. I know for some people that is a problem. I don't mind too much. I don't mind the liveliness, but the honking, the noise level is quite high. Actually, China is one of the loudest countries in the world. I'm not sure I've ever adjusted to it, I guess.
3 things I love. It's so easy. I think one of the things that surprised me to a certain extent was just how efficient things can be here. I mean, the transport network is so seamless. Trains are rarely late. You get where you're going. There's buses and trains everywhere. Or if there isn't, there's an easy to get taxi that you can call on your app and will be there in minutes. Having deliveries or sending something, online shopping and bringing it to your door is just so.
Everything to your convenience.
It's so convenient. It's just such a convenient place to live. At least here in an urban environment, in a city. It's such a convenient city. I think I love how much care is put into making sure that the urban space is green. There are always trees and always flowers and always...
They really do invest in landscape
Yeah.
designing, right?
They really do invest in the landscaping, in the parks, and I mean, if you just look around my community, I mean, my community is maybe it's I suppose middle class in its you know, economically. There are communities that are less wealthy, and therefore maybe the buildings aren't going to be quite as nice and the landscaping isn't going to be quite as nice, and yet still, I think even in a local compound, I think there's great care taken to make sure that there are still plants around and flowers around and trees around, and I think it's something that they just find important, and I think I really appreciate that. I love that they're a culture that is, to a certain extent, movement oriented. If I'm trying to explain that, you will see people out having a walk after dinner. I like that they're an active culture. They're not a culture that sits around and
couch potatoes.
Yeah, they're not a couch potato culture.
How about things you struggle with?
I think some of the things I struggle with are a flip side of some of those same things I love. And that's kind of true everywhere, right? I love how green it is, but I recognize that sometimes the aesthetic sense that they have can be one that is not necessarily one that I share. So, for example, everything's very green, but it all tends to be very uniform. If you'll notice, if you go along the road, it's all beautifully landscaped. There's a bush, there's a tree, there's flowers, but there's a sort of pattern that's on repeat for 20 kilometers down the road. And I think that for myself, I appreciate maybe a little bit less orderliness, but that's a small price to pay when I do at least have, you know, green space around me. Exactly. You know.
Any other things?
Other things, I'd say there can be a bit of if you live here, there's going to be a bit of jostling. We were talking about the transport network before. It's seamless, it's wonderful when you're getting on and off the train. When you're getting off, people are going to be trying to get on, and vice versa. So everybody's going to be in each other's way. And if you're going to a checkout line, there's going to be some jostling. It's going to happen. You just have to kind of get used to that. I think their sense of personal space is one that's quite different.
3 things that you love about this country.
Oh, at Taobao. I have an unnatural obsession with Taobao because you can get everything.
Taobao is Chinese Amazon.
Oh, it's not even Amazon. I mean, Amazon is a joke compared to Taobao. Okay. Where can you get human-sized eggs for like a theatre production anywhere other than Taobao? And bales of hay. Oh, I love that thing. No, seriously though, I mean, I am serious about Taobao and Didi's, which is...
Didi is the second thing, right?
Yeah.
Didi means taxi app, right?
Yes, yeah. It's like Uber, but...
What do you like about, how is it different from Uber?
It's because it's just so convenient.
More convenient.
And I think Uber only kind of started to come about when I left the UK, so I don't really understand Uber. But no, seriously, it's so safe here. It is safe. And as a woman walking by myself at night, I do not worry that anything is going to happen.
Should I count this as number 3, safety? Taobao, Didi
Taobao,
app.
Didi, safety.
Safety.
And the money I earn. And I really like the weather.
Right.
There's quite a few.
Okay, many things. How about things that you struggle with?
I struggle with misogyny. I struggle with the fact that as a non-Chinese person, sometimes I have to watch my back a little bit. If there are any disputes or anything, it can be quite awkward as the Westerner. I struggle sometimes with some cultural differences.
At work or in your daily life?
I think in my daily life. In smaller places, just the fact that, you know, I'm not Chinese, I get stared at a lot. Sometimes when I'm with my children and we go somewhere, we get stopped. And people, I mean, that's not a bad thing, you know, taking pictures of the kids, but they've had some quite bad experiences of people just kind of like trying to position them, and the kids are very strong with saying, no, I don't like that. So yeah, there are a couple of things.
Okay. All right. But the good stuff outweighs the negative things, right? Would you say?
No, I don't think it does. I think the money outweighs the negative stuff, and the lifestyle, that I can put up with some of the things that I don't like so much.
Right.
Because the life I can have not only now, but for my children's future, is just unbelievable. It would never have happened as a teacher in the UK.
What do you do for fun?
That's quite a loaded question. I mean, there are tons and tons of things you can do for fun. I like spending time with my friends, going to bars and restaurants and things like that, the usual things. But many people who come to Nanjing, they love the scenery, going to see the mountains, that kind of thing. But I'm very much a city boy. Like, I'd rather be where all the big buildings are, I love my own apartment very much, so I spend a lot of time there reading and playing video games, things like that. Yeah, I mean, spending time with my friends is one that I do very often.
How often can you afford to go to a restaurant?
Honestly, if I wanted to and I stopped caring about my waistline, I could probably go every day, potentially twice a day. Eating out in China is very, very cheap. Like, you can go to more expensive places, but if you just want to eat out, it's probably cheaper than buying food at the grocery store often.
How about nightlife in the city? Do you know anything about? Is there anything fun going on in Nanjing?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a solid club scene, as there are quite a lot of students here. The bar scene is also very good. That's where I generally meet the foreigners that sort of come into my friendship group. And it's the go-to place if I want to meet and socialise with them. So yeah, there's, even here, which is quite far outside of the main city, there's a place called Baijiahu, which has lots of Western restaurants, bars, lots of things to do. It's also by a very beautiful lake, so there's lots to see there as well.
Okay. How about cultural scene in Nanjing? Are there many exhibitions, music shows?
I know there is quite a big live music scene here. We're not very far from Shanghai, so the big names from Shanghai will often come here as well. There's some of the Western bars and restaurants also have like comedy nights and things like that, and open mic nights, so there's lots of that going on. I know there are art galleries and museums as well. I've been to a few of those, so there's definitely a big cultural scene here for people to enjoy.
Okay. How often can you travel around China? Or around Asia, maybe?
Well, working in a university, you do tend to get lots of free time. For example, my winter holiday is usually between 8 and 10 weeks of no class. Summer holiday is a little bit longer. Maybe
Let me kill that guy right now.
maybe 10 to 12 weeks. So you can there is plenty of time. And you also get the general holidays during the year as well, where you do get some time off to travel in China. So yeah, there's lots of opportunity to travel.
When you say 10 weeks, I'm like, what?
I mean, I don't, and I mean, I in the summer in particular, I use that time to work. I do summer camps and things like that. So
If it's too personal, you don't have to answer. But do you get paid in summer working in a uni?
So my job is a rolling 12-month
12
salary.
months a year.
So
Okay, that's
that's
very
true.
good.
But
That's
I
very
mean,
lucky.
that's it's not guaranteed. That depends on your university and your job. Like not all jobs are the same in China, and you can negotiate this kind of thing.
So being said that, would you say that a university job would be a perfect job for close to retirement people who want more freedom and lots of holidays?
I mean, yeah, theoretically. The one problem with that is when you are close to retirement, there is a cap to the age that they will hire.
What's the cap?
I think it's 60, but
60,
I'm not positive, but I think it's around 60 is where they will stop hiring foreign teachers.
Okay.
But I mean, on that note, it is great for new graduates, and it has always been the case. Like, if you have the qualifications, you do get the free time to travel, but you also get to experience working here. So it's good for all ages, I would say.
Recently I've been playing a lot of video games, some of course online, some not online. But in terms of going out for social, before a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was my kind of social and exercise sport. I'm taking a rest at the moment, but I am doing a climbing gym. So obviously it's a sport, and it's also a way to socialize. And playing some board games recently.
How often do you travel?
So the best thing about my job is that we get the big holidays twice a year. The winter vacation this year was 7 weeks. My summer vacation this year will be 10 weeks. So I travel I'm never more than 4 months away from my next vacation.
It is also an advantage of location, probably, right? Southeast Asia is a place where the beach is, where those countries like Thailand, Philippines are, right?
It's very easy to fly somewhere.
There are plenty of things I'm doing. First of all, I like to spend time with friends. I am a foodie. I like to go out and explore foods. There's always a new restaurant, and you know, friends, when they talk about me, they say, if you want to try a specific cuisine and you want to find good restaurants, ask Celine. So I'm the kind always on the outlook for new places. At the same time, I used to manage a game board group. I used to play chess in a chess club here, and also board games separately, all types of board games. That was quite a thing I've done for a long time, and I am still doing to some extent, but not as much as before, because now I spend more time working on my business, also working, still teaching. But these are my hobbies. I like to socialize and play games, and it fascinates me.
How often can you afford to go out to a restaurant?
Oh, every day. Multiple times a day. In Germany, for example, people don't go out every day. It's not something people do. People don't deliver, for example, order food in every day. People tend to cook at home because it is quite expensive to eat out or to order food based on delivery. Here in China, I feel like it's not just me, but also people, people with lower to medium income can afford to eat out regularly. They can afford to order food home, and I love that. It adds convenience, and I get to explore more foods. Yes.
Probably my most fun activity is I love, as you mentioned before, I'm a musician. I love getting together with friends and having a jam or sometimes doing a show. I also just enjoy, there's a lot of, it is a city, so there's restaurants and pubs.
How often can you afford to go to a restaurant, to a Western restaurant?
To a Western restaurant? Quite frequently, I think.
What do you do for fun here?
I'm in a band. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah, it's really cool.
Is it a good band?
Yeah, they're great. Got an amazing drummer.
We're playing the same band.
Yeah.
This husband is the guitar player.
Yeah, which is obviously great fun. I do, don't judge me, I do things like, I like to puzzle. I have a thing about puzzles now, and paint by numbers. I know, as a creative arts person, I should be painting in my own canvas, but I like that, I really like that. And I've got 2 young children and a dog, so we do lots of walking and water gun fights and things like this. And yeah, just I think it's hard in Nanjing because the art scene isn't as affluent, should we say, as it is in places like Shanghai, where it's far more sort of prominent. So yeah, occasionally kind of museums and things when there's new things to open, and the pub. Quite like a drink on a Friday night.
Okay. How often can you afford to go to a, say, medium-priced restaurant? A Western, probably.
Honestly, whenever I want, without even checking my account. I would never have been able to do that in the UK. But that is something that China has phenomenally changed my life in. I barely check my accounts, and I can go shopping and go out to restaurants, go to the pub, pay for a group of people, don't even check my account.
So judging by what you just said, it means that this ratio of your salary and living expense is really comfortable in China, right?
Very comfortable, yes. Okay. Yeah, there's a huge difference. In the UK, even my husband and I earning both really, really great wages, we're both professionals, and yet after the rent and the bills and the childcare and things like this, we were barely breaking even. Here, because the accommodation and healthcare, and we get travel bonuses, things like this, it's completely allowed me to, I've saved more in 5 years than I have done in my whole life. Paid for the masters, husband's PGCE, things like this that we could never have done in England. It's changed our life.
Do you miss your home?
Sometimes I do. I have missed my home a lot during COVID. I was stuck here for over 3 years, stuck I'm saying because that was the time when I wanted to visit home, but I couldn't because of the limitations. At that time, homesickness was a big deal. But right now, I know I have the freedom to go back home anytime. I am in contact with my family who lives there. So it feels okay. It doesn't feel like, you know, even though the distance is quite large, I feel like I can go visit them anytime. So that's why I don't feel homesick a lot.
No, I don't really feel much homesickness when I'm here. But I do find when I do visit home, I realise that I did miss it a little bit. But I talk to my parents maybe once every 2 weeks, something like that. And it's nice, but no, I don't miss home very much.
Yeah, of course. I miss my family, I miss my friends, I miss New Zealand.
I do not miss my home of record. So for most people, they'll ask me, where are you from? And what they mean is, where were you born and where did you grow up? I grew up in New Jersey, just outside of New York City. I went to school in New York City, and I've lived there at various points on and off as an adult. I love visiting New York City, but I personally I didn't enjoy living there. I found it a little too hectic, a little too much hustle and bustle, a little too in your face. Where I spent more of my adult life was Thailand. And my wife is Thai, and I spent many years in Thailand, and we still have a condo there, and we still have a house there, and we go back several times a year. And I, at this point, or have long since considered Thailand to be my home.
Okay.
I love my life there. That's where I plan to retire. So do I miss Thailand? All the time.
Not at all.
Okay.
I live in this beautiful complex. The sun is shining. I've got my family with me. Now people, my family I miss, but the actual state of the UK embarrasses me, what they are doing and what people are putting up with in the UK is, I think because it's happened so slowly that people don't realise how bad things are, but being able to see it from the outside, I can see the destruction that my government are doing to my people, and I don't want to be part of that. Okay. So, and my husband and my children are here. You know, that's my family, and my mum, I saw her last year in Thailand, and my brother and my nephew, which was amazing. So that's what we do. Rather than me going back, we go to some beautiful country and explore it together.
Right. How often do you go back?
I try to go home once every 2 years, if I can. I last visited home in January, but I tend to not stay for very long. I stay maybe 2 weeks at home when I do visit, because after 2 weeks I find I'm ready to come back to China, to where I consider my actual home, which is here.
Once a year is what I'm intending, what I'm trying to do, but sometimes, you know, work gets in between. There have been times, for example, last time I've been home was about 1.5 years ago, right when doors opened here in China after COVID. That's the same week when everybody got sick, but borders opened. It was the time I went back home, the first opportunity I got. But then, you know, I've been busy with the business and all. Sometimes you can't go as often as you wish because the distance is quite a lot. It takes about 1 day to go home, 1 day to come back. Then you have to account for the jet lag, the time difference, to adjust to the time. You need at least 2 weeks, I would say, to visit home to make it worth it. And that's the time I don't always have. I wish I could go home, you know, visit my family once or twice a week, but it's not always possible.
I'm back once every 2 or 3 years. I'm going back now in June this year. So, and it's always nice because New Zealand is such a contrast to the the crowded cities of China. It's always really nice to get back to be in such a different country,
Right.
and see my friends and see my family.
We went back during the Christmas break this year, and we went back during the most recent April break, and we will be going back during the summer break, and I'm sure we'll be back at the Christmas break. So I'm actually there at least 3 or 4 times during the year for a week to 2 weeks at a time. Sometimes a little longer in the summer, sometimes a little shorter in the Christmas break, but I get to spend time there. And for me, it's a very convenient place to call home because I'm not that far away. If my goal was to travel to New York that many times a year, I'd have to probably sell a kidney, and I would, I just wouldn't be able to afford to fly back and forth that often, and it's just the time it would take to fly back. I mean, to fly to New York is a day.
How often do you go home?
I don't really. I only went last year for 2 weeks because my father passed away.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. It's so expensive, even just flights home, even though I get travel allowance. Also, we're in China. It's like, I want to travel here and Thailand, and there are these beautiful places. And I mean, really, I don't feel like I have a home anymore. Like, my sister and my niece and nephew are back in the, nieces and nephew, and my best friend are back in the UK. But we talk all the time. And my mum now lives in France, so it's kind of quite difficult to go and do England and then France, especially with the 4 of us. Yeah.
How do you find expats around Nanjing?
Yeah, great. Great. Some of my best friends. No, I do. I think that people who live in different countries, I think, have a different mentality to just holiday makers. And so people come here and they've got open hearts, and they're just welcoming. It's kind of like, you know, when you go to university and everyone's making friends with everybody, it's kind of like that, but on a far grander scale.
With much more opportunities to have fun, right?
Yeah.
Because you're actually earning money here.
Yes, yeah.
And you can have fun with your friends. Okay.
And it's lovely because there are things to do with the family. There's lots of children-friendly events as well, and grown-up mummy time events. So
that's actually an interesting topic. You just mentioned your kids having fun with kids of other expats. Is there a big community of families with children of more or less the same age as your kids?
There are in other schools. There's another international school that is very close to the one that we're at.
Okay.
It's got a far greater expat student community.
How often do you get together with?
Hardly at all. They have, they do events, and we just haven't kind of taken part in them really. So I don't think it's necessarily that the opportunities haven't been there. I think we haven't really taken those opportunities.
Right. Okay.
But that's one thing that I do find quite difficult is my boys. They don't really have many friends, and that I kind of struggle with because I feel quite responsible.
Okay. Do you ever allow your kids to just, walk about at least this community?
Oh yeah. They go out. They get their pocket money every Saturday.
So they go outside of this community as well?
I allow them to go out of the community gates and go to the shop around the corner.
Right.
My eldest has his phone with him, and the security officers, they are on the gates. And I do feel very safe. I mean, obviously, the irrational side of me, as the mum, always panics that my children are going to get, stolen and taken away. But I have to kind of suppress that a little bit to give them. You've got to give children some independence.
Of course.
But yes, they do. They don't go for long, and they stay in texting contact. But yeah, I feel very confident to let them just pop out.
In conclusion, I would like to express huge gratitude to my friends who helped me to make this video. I wish all the luck and prosperity in their lives. Thank you guys. So as you can tell, there is a huge range of schools where you can work in China. However, there is one exception: training centers. It's a dying breed, and those schools that are still operating, they're doing it within the gray area of the law. I would not recommend finding a job there. So choosing where to work is entirely up to you. If you want a more relaxed schedule, probably a university or a public school would be a good choice. But if you want more money, if you want professional growth and more accountability for your work, international school would be a great choice. Hit like and subscribe buttons if you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for more videos about teaching in China, and not only. I also post videos about traveling, about music, about books, and other things that are happening to me on this planet in my life. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.